He was an active member of Brian Pickles, a group of Bangladeshi creative writers in English. His first book, a collection of poems, was Anya Ganga Gan Samudra Saman. It almost rhymes, I think,
Yeah.
from 2016. It was followed by a collection of short stories, another collection of poems, and a novel, Goddess of Amnesia, from 2022. Abdullah will read a translated passage from this novel. Please welcome him.
I hope you can hear me. Thank you, and thanks a lot to Literary Translators Association of Canada. I will be reading two excerpts from this novel, Goddess of Amnesia, which was published in 2022 by Chandrabindu Prakashan from Chittagong, Bangladesh. But before going to the excerpts, translated excerpts, I would like to read a paragraph from the original Bengali version so that you have an essence of the Bengali language, which is added for the first time here. পরের দিন ভোরে উঠে দাদি জানতে পারলো পুরো খবর। দুই নেত্রীকে গৃহবন্দী করা হয়েছে। গৃহবন্দী শব্দটা শুনতে মন্দ না। এর অর্থ জানার পর দাদির কাছে শব্দটিকে আরো বেশি সহজ মনে হতে লাগলো। গৃহবন্দী তো সে নিজেও। নিজের বাড়ির ভিটা ছেড়ে আজ কত মাস হয়ে গেল সে কোথাও যায় নাই। বাইরের দুনিয়া কেমন সে ভালো মতন জানে না। 10 গ্রামে আরো এমন হাজার নারীকে পাওয়া যাবে যারা দিনের পর দিন সপ্তাহ মাস ধরে স্বামী শ্বশুরের ভিটায় বন্দী হয়ে পড়ে থাকে। দেশের লক্ষ কোটি উদ্ধত পুরুষের প্রতিনিধি প্রেসিডেন্ট খুব তুচ্ছ কাজ করেছেন। নারীকে ঘরে বন্দী করার মতো সহজ কোনো কাজ পুরুষের জানা নাই। দাদি কল্পনা করতে লাগলো রাজধানীর বুকে দুইটা সাদা রঙের বাড়ি, বাড়ির জানালায় সেই দুই গৃহবন্দী, একজনের চোখে চশমা, মাঝারি পাড়ের শাড়ি, আরেকজনের পরনে সাদা শাড়ি, অম্লান চোখ। দুইজন দুই জানালায় দাঁড়িয়ে বাইরের পৃথিবীতে ঘটে যাওয়া ঘটনাগুলো আঁচ করার চেষ্টা করছেন। গাছের পাতারা দুলছে, দূরে মানুষের পায়ের শব্দ, নদীর ঢেউ হয়ে শহরের পথগুলো সকাল থেকে রাত নৃত্য করে চলে। The first excerpt I'm going to read is can be read as the prologue of the novel and at the same time an introduction to the goddess herself, Goddess of Amnesia. She visits us on clear moonlit nights, the only goddess who can forget her own glorious name, always a stranger. Every city, every town, each and every village along the living and dead rivers, all kinds of lands she treads upon, exist namelessly in her brain. This gorgeous goddess who knows how to gather our forgettable dreams and nightmares, unremembered emotions and experiences, or whatever we leave behind and forget to look back on. The timeless stream of human life keeps flowing across us, merely to wash away our hours, days, weeks, months, the long eventful years we simultaneously love and hate to spend. As we can hardly hold on to anything, as we are too feeble to remember for a long period of time, faces friendly and familiar, meaningful dates and events, rapturous desires, even some of the unbearably subtle pains. As the part of our journey we can see and hear, looking back, standing at the edge of a cliff between life and death, is less than insignificant. The goddess, therefore, is always work-rich and time-poor. She has to work 7 days a week. Her residence is filled with all sorts of unwanted souvenirs. The goddess never closes the doors and windows of the castle she lives in. Nobody knows for how many silent centuries it has been continuing to welcome uninterrupted light at dawn and dreamy darkness in the evening. Our memories, assorted and countless, concrete and abstract, are all left unattended on the marble floor. The big-hearted goddess herself, who with utmost care has saved them from fading into oblivion, is no doubt, in all respects, unable to remember them. The next excerpt is from the middle of the novel, from around the climax. The reason I have chosen this part is because this part can also be read as a separate story. This is the second month of our winter, and the duration of daytime is gradually increasing once again. I find him sitting in front of the setting sun with half-open eyes as muddled as the sky. His silence seems to claim he has been enjoying every moment of the day. Recently, I have discovered that sometimes, in winter evenings, I forget to forget. The faces and words I was supposed not to recollect at all come back to disturb my now not so disturbing life. So stupidly careless in the whole evening, I have all of a sudden recognized his once forgotten face. He speaks in a singer's voice, sounds surprisingly young. When I ask if he lives with his wife and children, he just blushes and glances shyly at me, the teenage smile on his wrinkled face. I hope I'm all right. I hope I'm not that schoolgirl once again on the verge of having a crush on him. But he and his classic denial. He does not seem to recall that we met before. Shocked, surprised, and speechless, I have to fake an introducing hi to him and instantly received a hello in reply. Then he starts telling me what I have already known about him for decades. He sounds so genuinely curious while inquiring about my life that I feel obliged to retell what I have already told him 100 times. Believe it or not, I am a modern monk. He sounds quite confident while claiming that all through his life he has maintained an alarming distance from all of his probable sex partners. An irreligious monk, to be exact. You know, when I was growing up, I mean in my early teens, I used to dream of having sex with film stars. Those wet dreams also had music in them, original soundtracks from the movies. But I was always worried about those dream scenes. They used to haunt me from dawn to dusk. I can't tell you why, but I still remember each and every beat of those uncontrollable, uncomfortable feelings. The pleasures found in dreams eventually became pains in reality. I could not forget the touches and smells of the dreamed bodies. Their smells hampered almost all my meals. I could not even drink a glass of water without holding my nose. Oh, those ugly, awful days. When I left the country for higher education, I was only 24. That was like a cultural shock for me. It took me almost a year to cope, and one morning, after 13 months, I discovered I was the loneliest person there. A small town it was, in one of the richest countries of the world. Loneliness was the normal aspect of my life, only normal thing. Everything else was going weird and absurd day by day. My dreams by that time had turned into the worst possible nightmares. I was regularly shedding a great deal of blood in those dreams, both mine and of others. And to my horror, I woke up in the middle of the wet dreams to find fresh blood on the bedsheet, still oozing out. Wish I was equally asexual while sleeping. How can someone lie? How come someone can lie so passionately? My voice unexpectedly sounds very objective, as if I was reading aloud someone else's commentary on his trumped up life. He must have sustained a surgery or something. while living in one of the richest countries of the world, he says that he does not remember his mother. He must have paid a lot of money for replacing the actual events of his life with what he is telling me now. I remember he used to wish he hadn't remembered his mother's name, address, or face. He used to curse himself in those days and tell me why he thought he was the worst son ever. To him, his mother was like a haunting phantom. It was almost 40 years ago. I was just a schoolgirl then, enjoying the early teen years. I clearly remember his first sentence to me. It was abrupt and dramatic. Without any hi and hello, he directly went to the message he was willing to deliver. I don't have a mother and I'm not like you. We were in the same class, but he had hardly been noticed until one morning when he grabbed my hand. I had arrived a bit early that day and there was no one else in the classroom. He stared at me with great sullen eyes. I tried to ignore his gaze, but he seized my hand. I was shocked, irritated, surprised. I don't have a mother and I'm not like you. I could not get anything from his utterance. But before I could ask him to explain and add more words, he ran away. What a weird kid. I'm glad that I am in no way like him, I assured myself. He bunked that day's classes, but spent the whole day hiding somewhere on the premises. In the afternoon, I found him standing outside the entrance with a nicely wrapped book. He said he'd been waiting for me since morning and the book was a gift. That was the first time anyone offered me a present. I could not hide my excitement while receiving it. Both of us were trembling out of God knows what. And a completely different week started from the next day, unbearably new for me. What made me suffer was not the book, but a one-line note I had found in it. He wrote the same message again, but added an audacious clause. I don't have a mother, and I'm not like you, and I love you. Things were not the same from the next morning. Surprisingly, I began to believe he had actually cast such a spell over me but could not find any reason why he would do that. He is the worst person I have ever met, a nasty little creep. I started hating him only because I discovered I was stupidly in love with him. Why should my first love be a peculiar person who always loves to think that I'm not like him? A studious kid turned obsessed lover. I was the first person to set foot on our school premises after the vacation. The sun was yet to rise. I entered an always open classroom and looked outside. The flowers in the school garden, the leaves on and off the trees, the long narrow balconies, the tubers, the yellow staircases of the newly constructed two-story building. Everything seemed disturbed, awakened by the cacophony that my heartbeats and footsteps created. I had not waited very long when he entered the room carrying a black bag, wearing a cap with a 2002 World Cup logo on it. My eyes fell directly upon the portable cassette player he was carrying. He was probably listening to his favorite singer, pretending he had not noticed me yet. Leaving the bag carelessly on a bench, he went straight to the last window. I felt so ignored that I could not resist myself from shouting at him in a wild, frustrated voice. I was waiting for you, Mr. Motherless. How could you not talk to me? He was really a weird kid, the craziest of the lovers I have ever had. He did not say anything in reply, just turned around like a tree bent by a strong gust of wind, and his lips fell upon mine. We had been repeating the morning until the flood closed our school indefinitely. It happened to be the decade's most notorious disaster. To us, it came as a jailer, keeping us forcefully apart in different cells. We were writing letters to each other, every night, but could not hand them over. That seemed to be the longest month in my whole life. And when at last the flood was over, by the time we were back to school, I had turned into a different person, desperate, spellbound, and always ready to dive into love. When we got the opportunity at last to exchange the letters, we were trying. It was 7:10 in the morning. Nobody else was around. We closed the always open door of the classroom. Then he asked me to sit in the west corner of the last bench. No sooner had I sat than he gently lay on my lap and lowered my face towards it. His eyes were closed. The cassette player with his favorite song was accompanying us. The song smelled the same as his hair was spreading the color of his now closed eyes. দেখবে আমাদের ভালোবাসা হয়ে গেছে কখন যেন পদ্ম পাতার জল. Our love, you will see, has become water drops on the petals of a lotus. As if we were running out of time. In those days, everything was happening with excessive speed and energy. Intoxicated with love and lust, I was always craving for his touch and the warmth of his flesh. So the moment he proposed a tryst in the evening, I could not say no. We were in the same class, but he was 2.5 years older than me, almost 15 by that time. Those were all his plans, out of an older brain. He chose a rainy day and decided we would tell our parents that we could not but stay longer at school because of the late afternoon downpour. The buildings along with the ground were all empty by 6. It was still raining outside. The song and the rain together created a different music. That loud and confused melody was whispering into my ears. It was asking me questions that had no answers. For the first time, I felt I owned another body beyond mine. The boy who always closed his eyes as soon as I touched him, who did not have a mother and thus always different from me, eventually became mine. When the song was over, the rain outside was telling me the tale of his unique life, a rhyme story that sounded almost like a poem. He does not have a mother and he is not like you. He does not have a mother and he loves you. A cute love story, though flat and full of overused images. He sounds polite but does not mince his words. It's not a story, I explained. I tried to tell you what exactly happened between you and me. You must be an enchanting storyteller and seem to be good at realistic fantasy. I would like to appreciate your skill in this, the way you invite the listeners into your tales. It's an effective trick. By the way, I believe what you told me so far is mere fantasy, an unusual kind of fantasy that sounds real, deceptively real. Okay, forget it. I'm losing my patience. You don't have to believe it. Just one question. Tell me, why did you replace your memory with I did not do anything? He butts in. I really don't understand why on earth anyone should forget the real events of his life, no matter how difficult and painful they are. And if it was so unavoidable, if you seriously needed to forget, then why did you fill the blank space with those bloody wet dreams and terrible asexual experiences? Why not with anything pleasant, colorful, happy? You are disgustingly nosy. If you cannot live without fantasy, make up your own past to create false memories of yourself. And for the people who are interested, not for me, please. I am not interested, sorry. I am so angry and upset that I cannot find any words to say in reply. A long silence like a thick wall now stands between us. I also have a question. He speaks once again in a singer's voice, breaking the awkward silence. If you cannot live without fantasy, and you are honestly good at creating it, why do you pick and include real people in it? My suggestion is, next time, be more creative. Invent your characters. Don't drag real life people into your not real stories. Between us, the winter has created a selfless river. There is a beautiful breeze over its icy water. We have both noticed it, almost simultaneously. But I am not feeling like crossing it, not feeling like talking to him, not anymore. I believe he also feels the same. Hence, without answering each other's questions, leaving the breeze untrodden, rejecting suggestions and complaints, we walk apart. Together, we walk apart. Thank you.